Hello, everyone, and welcome to twitch.tv/the Onyx Path. My name is Travis Legge. My pronouns are he and they, and I am here today to work on some community content stuff. Before we dive too deep into our adventures in community content creation, there are a couple things I wanted to bring to everybody's attention. First and foremost, we are currently holding a Kickstarter for Titans Rising. Titans Rising is a new source book for Scion. It includes options for playing Titanic Scions, just all sorts of new pantheons, just plenty of new and cool information to expand your Scion campaign. This Kickstarter will also be supporting bringing Titanomachy into your friendly local game store. So by supporting this Kickstarter, you're not only helping get Titans Rising made, but you're also helping get Titanomachy, which is a very popular and very useful supplement dealing with antagonists for Scion. Helping get that on shelves in stores as well. And you can also get yourself a traditionally printed copy of that book. So head over to Kickstarter if you've not yet done so and check out Titans Rising. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is the recent release of Rat in a Burning Cage. Rat in a Burning Cage is a virtual tabletop focused supplement for Trinity Continuum Assassins. It has maps, handouts, audio files, all sorts of cool stuff, ready-made characters, and everything you need to run an adventure using Trinity Continuum Assassins. It's got quick play rules in there. Really just a complete package. Hello, Blink. I hope you're well today, too. Thanks for being here. So yeah, definitely check out the Kickstarter. Definitely pick up a copy of Rat in a Burning Cage. The links for both are in the chat. And tune in here tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. Colin, the awkward GM who runs our beginner's guide series on here, is going to be running, I believe, his first actual play that he's running on the channel. And that's going to be Friday. It's going to be 8 p.m. and that's going to be Assassin's Rat in a Burning Cage. And I get to play. So there's two awesome reasons to tune in. So you'll notice next to my face here, I mentioned if you watched last week, I tend to try to look for art pieces that I find compelling or interesting. The Storypath Nexus program does offer stock art, but you can also pick up various stock art through several sites, but DriveThruRPG itself has a section of stock art that's created specifically for use with tabletop role-playing games. And I've had this image that you see on the cover of Assault on Nemesis Station. I've had that in my wish list for a very long time, just waiting for the right project to use it in. So I have gone ahead and picked up that stock art over at DriveThruRPG, thrown it on the cover of this adventure, and I'm getting ready to get to work on that. I think it's very inspiring. I think it fits with the alien horror aesthetic that we're kind of going for with this adventure. And yeah, I'm genuinely real happy with the choice there. I'm gonna dig up the link to that piece and throw it in the chat in case you want to use the same piece in some of your stock art. There's no reason, we can share, right? That's what stock art's for. So I'm going to throw that link in the chat as well. That's from Daniel Comerci, who does a lot of really good pieces. I've used their art several times. So now that I've done promoted and spoken about the things that are out there, let's dive into it. When last we met, we broke down we basically broke out the plot of the story. So I'm going to review those notes and see if I have any idea what we're talking about, or if I have to go back and watch the VOD. What you can do, by the way, if you are a subscriber on this channel, you have exclusive access to our VODs for usually around 7 days, and then they go out to YouTube. Things have been a little slow in the getting things to YouTube side because we've had so much going on. There's a bit of a backlog, but rest assured, if you're waiting for your favorite show to pop up over there, it's on the way. So, as we were going over our breakdown, we've got scene one is getting the characters to Nemesis Station. The default assumption is that they come from elsewhere. We have Aeon team for a tech inspection. By psi order, setting the motivations for being in the asteroid belt. I'm going to go ahead and put that being in just so that I don't forget to do it later. Passing through and something unrelated goes wrong. ICE employees or space pirates. Explain the hooks, introduce the characters. It's all pretty straightforward, and that should be easy to do as we flesh out scene one. Scene two, we've got characters arriving at Nemesis. The place is a wreck. Some areas have containment or atmo breach. Initially appear to be deserted. The players have to investigate to find out what happened. ICE employees in contact with something on the asteroid or a nearby asteroid. Yep, cool. So, and Chandra Magic had suggested everything was going fine until we pulled in that new asteroid for mining. Yes, I like these ideas. And obviously we'll flesh them out and revisit it as we're going through and dialing things in. But I like the idea of much like if you've seen John Carpenter's The Thing, when they go to visit the Norwegian station and they find the place just wrecked and the shambles, and then they slowly start to find evidence of this alien craft. I think we could build a very similar parallel scene here, so I'm very excited about that. Scene three is getting to and through the nest. Players will follow the trail to the aberrant nest, overcoming natural and aberrant-made obstacles and pitfalls. Also, I guess I should point out, scene two then covers our procedural scene type. There are 3 areas of action in Trinity Continuum. Scene 2 is going to cover our procedural. Scene 3 is going to cover action adventure as they're making their way to the aberrant's nest through various obstacles and pitfalls. Sorry, my cat is demanding attention, so I'm trying my best to accommodate her while I speak. So yeah, scene 2 covering our procedural, scene 3 covering our action adventure, and scene 4, of course, they meet with the aberrant cult. There's going to be a settlement there that the cult will info dump their history. Basically, they are going to be a cult that dates back to prior to the Aberrant War. And they came to this remote location in the asteroid belt to try to survive and try to escape the conflict. They've been living there peacefully, quote unquote, ever since, and they resent the fact that ICE is there stealing their water. So this is going to start as a intrigue scene, and depending on how it plays out, the characters should be able to, they can affect the outcome. They could possibly even talk their way out of this thing, or it might turn into another fight as they discover that the true powers of the settlement are perfectly willing to slaughter them all to get their way, to protect their water. And then scene 5, we have kind of our denouement. We could have, if they escape and survive, characters can reach out for a rescue. They can repair their ship, try to get out of there, or contact the organization who sent them. So that's our basic 5-act structure that we have written down. And then we moved along to doing some creature design for our antagonists. And I think today we're going to bounce back over to that and get that buttoned up, so that then as we come in and we flesh out the meat on these sort of plot hooks we have put together, we can start to filter that through what the actual antagonists are, so we can shape the settlement and shape their needs and their desires to what we've got on the page for their stats rather than trying to retrofit them together. I know that maybe sounds a little strange or a little bit unintuitive when you're creating things, but I find it's easier to, once I have the basic plot beats in play, I find personally it's easier to flesh those out if I have a good, clear idea of the needs and motivations of the antagonists. So that's where we're going to go. And I agree, Blink. The Thing is one of my favorite films of all time. John Carpenter is a amazing director who is massively underrated in my humble opinion, and we need to just more John Carpenter in the world. So when last we gathered, we had filled out traits for our aberrant cultists using the subaberrant mutants guidelines in Trinity Continuum, and we have used our cult leader, who also is a subaberrant mutant, but is kind of a step up. So he's more of, I have in the notes here, between standard mutants and divergent aberrants, but I'm going to just go ahead and put advanced mutant. That's what we're going to call him. Because that's really kind of what this trait collection is. He's just a little bit better than the average cultist. Has a couple of extra additional extras beyond what the cultists have, so they're just kind of a subaberrant mutant plus. And we did get traits knocked out for our divergent buddy. And these are going to be kind of the, I think we had discussed having like a almost like a alien style scenario where there's this thing that's kind of hunting them in one of the scenes. I think that's where the divergent is going to fit. They've got power scale, which is handy. Lets them do more damage. They have an enhancement to stealth, also handy. And the unseen ability, which I've already worked the bonuses into their traits. So unseen basically allows them to turn effectively invisible. They're also able to incapacitate with an attack and use the quantum wave feature. And I'm just going to look up what that does because there are a couple of quantum features in the antagonist section, and I sometimes get them backwards. So Quantum Wave lets them lend strength to their allies. So all characters within long range temporarily remove an injury condition or gain a +1 enhancement to all actions. So that's neat, and it lasts until the end of the scene. So that divergent can sort of help their buddies, as it were. So yeah, let's get into it. We've got their design knocked out. Let's go over to our nemesis now. As I mentioned last week, one of the things that has always kind of vexed me a little bit about Trinity is, I've been a fan of Trinity since it came out. And so I will freely admit that I hold on to a few of the preconceived notions from first edition. And while I am generally a fan of the sort of brighter world that second edition presents, I do sometimes feel like the aberrants could use a little bit more teeth. So in this adventure, we're going to give them a little bit more teeth. Our nemesis uses a slightly enhanced template as opposed to the nemesis that's presented in Trinity Continuum AN. We basically increased each of their pools by 1, and I have worked out a few traits for them. And I think that was just kind of poking around with it as we finished the stream last week. I know, Zog. My goodness. Yes, exactly. It's all mouths and teeth. It's pure terror, and I love it. It's my favorite. Um, so what do we want up here? We got our pools numbered but not actually detailed. We have our extras filled in at power and durability scale of 3, which is nice. That will make it so they're still able to be affected by scions without any need to manufacture scale. It's going to be hard for them, but they can do so without dipping into a need to generate scale somehow. Because in Storypath, if you have 3 scale above your enemy, you're considered to kind of automatically win. So at scale 3, the normal characters are scale 1. They'll still be a little outmatched, but they'll be able to stand in a fight. So with our qualities, we went with invulnerability to heat. I added some armor. I'm gonna bold that so I can keep track of them. Yeah, some of these I kind of was putting together at the end in a bit of a rush, so I'm just cleaning a couple things up here. So with our nemesis, we went qualities with invulnerability to heat, armor that is complete and defensive, and defensive armor. That tag basically means that if they are attacked, the person who attacks them has to resist some damage because their armor is spiky. They got spines sticking out of their back. It's pretty dangerous stuff. Which, as you can see, it's just one example where the art can influence kind of the decisions that are being made in terms of the narrative. So, in addition to we got the power scale and the +3 enhancement. That enhancement's going to go across the board. They have the invulnerability with a heat weakness. So their invulnerability applies to all damage except heat. And so what that does is basically, no, I apologize. I was getting my wires crossed. Is absolutely that they just do not suffer damage from heat. So, in the event that they're fighting, psychokinetics who want to shoot a bunch of fire at them, it's not going to do them any good. That is their invulnerability. So, just want to make sure we got all these into the appropriate order. And one thing I like to do when I'm creating community content, one easy way is to just sort of keep in the spirit and letter of the rules for the community content program, but without sacrificing a whole lot of utility for the story guides and players for picking your stuff up. Anytime you're referencing a power, a trait, something that exists in a previously purchased book, then you're going to want to make sure that you put a page number reference in there, just so that way it's very easy for the story guides and players who are relying on your community content material uh, to find what they're trying to reference and to use the product as easily as they can at their table. Yes, thermophage, exactly. And I absolutely agree, Blank. It would be a complete waste to not use this art as a creature. He's such an adorable little guy with all them weird eyes and giant claws. Fun stuff. I will beat myself to the punch here to uh, try to correct some of these places where we have Aeon spelled without the fancy character. So I'm going to fix that while I'm talking here. And then we took unstoppable as well. And that gives him a massive physical form, standing at least 8 or 9 feet tall and at least half that across. Size scale increases by 1, so let's go ahead and make sure we alter that. So we got scale at power durability of 3, and then size 2. And that will not increase their power scale, but it will increase their durability scale. So let's break this down a little bit differently. So we've got power 3, durability 4. Now this means that in order for the scions to injure this aberrant, they will have to figure out a way to employ scale. There are a couple of ways that can be sort of employed. There are some rules specifically in Prometheus Unbound that help them get hold of scale. Also, when in doubt, get a big gun, or a Varg. Those are nice ways to bring scale into the fight as well. So yeah, and I just want to make sure that I note that we are including those trait modifications in here. So under Unstoppable, we've got the size, the scale, and then we're going to go ahead and note too that all of the traits modifiers have been worked into the description, or the traits above, I should say. I say bonuses already worked into traits, that's what I used. And one thing I try to make sure that I do, even if I'm using, well, I guess I should say, especially if I'm using a collection of terminology or some words that don't just appear normally in the setting, I try to make sure that and I'm repeating those, I try to make sure that I use exact repetition of the language. So this might not be what it says in its final form, but right now I'm using bonuses already worked into traits. That's not something that's like prescribed in the system, so I just want to make sure that I'm internally consistent. My advice for when you're creating content like this is always look for consistency with the core books that you're referring to first. But if there's no established precedent, then just make sure that you are being internally consistent within your own book. Ideally, you'll also be internally consistent within your several books. Like as you're putting out more than one product, if you're using consistent terminology and you're not contradicting the consistent terminology that's in other books, I think you're in probably the best shape you could ask for. Forgive me, I'm a little bit dusty. Okay, so we got the qualities all sorted out. Break that down into mutations in the next section. So our nemesis is a big boy. It's quite dangerous. Going to be very difficult to wound without deploying scale in some way, shape, or form. And there's scurry. Their mutations are disruption, which they can do once. Let's see. Well, they can do it on their turn, basically. There's no cost. It lasts for the duration of the scene unless broken. It's one character within simple or within medium range, and it's a simple action. This allows the aberrant to disrupt the molecular structure of others, scrambling their presence in the space-time continuum. Doesn't sound fun. The effects of disruption may vary. The story guide is encouraged to be highly descriptive. Non-minor characters may resist the disruption with a clash. So I'd be able to, roll, I would assume, I have to look up the specifics, but I would assume it would be a psi roll for them for science to resist it. But you're looking at disruption effects can include things like enfeebling the target, adding a +2 complication to all might and dexterity actions, inflicting injuries directly, which is fine, which cannot be used to take out a character, or increasing the difficulty of a stunt by 2. So disruption kind of just lets them screw with the target's like fundamental quantum presence in reality. Yeah, I agree 100%, Blanket. You have to have the consistency so you're not confusing the shit out of your readers. It never hurts to go through and like search your document once you got it all done, do a final final pass on it to make sure that there's nothing you've missed, that you're not introducing any unintentional contradictions. And then the other mutation that our adorable friend the Nemesis here has is World Shaking, which costs 1 corruption to use. The Nemesis has 5, so they have a little bit to throw around. And this allows them to disrupt the ground, sending mighty vines through concrete, altering the ground structure to liquid, or simply smashing it incredibly hard. I'm assuming that our beautiful boy with the pretty eyes here is going to go with smashing the ground hard. But it creates difficult terrain out to medium range, and they can center the disturbance anywhere within their line of sight. Yeah, that's going to be our Nemesis abilities. So let's look at what our dice pools are going to be for this guy. Obviously, he's going to be very concerned with the application of violence. So I think we're going to go ahead and put close combat into his primary pool. And let's make that his initiative as well, because that's important, right? And then I think in addition to close combat, we should have just straight up intimidation, because he's, again, pretty scurry looking dude. For our secondary pool, how about stealth? He can be sneaky, but it's hard. He's big. And let's do tracking. All right. So if he needs to chase you down, that's the relevant pools. And again, I kind of want to talk just a moment, since we're here, about the philosophy behind the pools, right? So the design philosophy is your primary pool is the thing that you are being brought here to do. These are the actions that the antagonist is going to roll. Okay? So you really want to stack the deck with, like, this is the thing they're here for. Therefore, this is the thing they are best at. And you want to pick, 1 or 2, possibly 3. Usually I find it best to just limit them both to 2. But specific actions that they're going to roll those dice for. Secondary pool is the same thing, but these are things that, while they're not the primary function of the character, they're a supplemental function. They're going to help the character do the thing that they do best. So that's kind of the reasoning behind your secondary pool. Your desperation pool is literally everything else. It's everything that your character has no business rolling, or your character is not appropriate to roll, so on and so forth. Um, for me, I take that to mean that anytime you're dealing with a system, there's a lot of system widgets in Trinity that refer to a particular attribute or a particular skill or so on and so forth. To my mind, those are best served by just using the desperation pool. It makes things faster. It, generally speaking, is going to be about the same or maybe one higher than dividing the primary pool in half. And it doesn't. You don't have to do any math at the table to do it. It's just, it's a number that's right there. It's easy to reference, and that's kind of what it's there for. So that would be my recommendation to you both, as you're running your games and if you're designing material, to sort of keep that approach in mind. I'll go ahead and get myself a drink. So stat-wise, looks like we've got our nemesis covered. And again, this is all very basic stuff here that I will go through and flesh out and punch up before it ever sees the light of day. One thing I always try to do before I put my writing out there in the world is go through it and read it out loud. And it's a good way to make sure you miss any like awkward phrasing or things that just don't make sense. Like if you're reading it out loud and it doesn't sound right to you, it's probably because it's not right. So that's just another sort of way to easily like proofread yourself, is to literally read it all out loud and see if any of that doesn't make sense or is distracting or is just unclear. My poor cat is just having a time today. Normally, I shut her out of the office when I'm streaming, but today I left my door open, and she's decided that I can't pay attention to anything but her, because she's a sweetie little pie. So, getting back to not cat-related issues. All right, looks like we've got everything sort of dialed in here for these two, so we're going to move ahead to our next antagonist, and this is going to be our big bad evil guy. This is going to be sort of I'm envisioning this is the aberrant who led this particular group prior to the Aberrant War. So they've been around for a while. They're established. They have a power base, and they've been stewing in their quantum juices for at least 50, 60 years, probably much longer. Excuse me. So again, we're going to assume that this is using a slightly improved version of the Terrat template. So the Terrat template is the biggest of big bads that's provided in the Aeon book. And we are dialing up the top two numbers, the primary and secondary pool. We're going to leave the tertiary or the desperation pool at 6. I generally don't see any reason to ever go above that for a desperation pool. Especially because the desperation pool can be kind of a fallback position for a stand-in for traits that the antagonists don't have. I think taking above 6 is just unfair, for lack of a better term. So the template for the Terrat calls for starting corruption of 6 to 8. So I think we're gonna go ahead and give them 8 corruption. Let's make it real nasty. I think one of the player goals should maybe be to not fight this guy. If it gets to a point where you're throwing down with this particular Terrat, you have made a mistake. So let's go with that reasoning. Corruption 8. We're gonna just dial it up, make them badass. Our extras are durability, power, and size at 4 plus, right? So we're going to just assume all of these at 4 for now. And we'll adjust them individually if the need arises. So they have +5 enhancement and monstrous presence. So what this does is there's no way it can look mundane or mortal. It kind of is surrounded by this aura of awe or terror. So only beings of tier 2 or higher, or those who are a great distance away, can oppose or attack the aberrant. So that means that like normal baselines can't even oppose or attack this creature. They just lose. Whereas scions, of course, are tier 2, so they're able to put up a bit of a fight. So yes, I mean yes, they're player characters. They will do silly things and fight things that they shouldn't. But I want to design it to be a thing they shouldn't fight. And then if they choose to risk themselves, sorry, I had a message from the missus. If they choose to risk themselves, that's on them. And we make it clear that this is not designed for futzing and playing around with. So we have +5 enhancement. We have monstrous presence is going to be one of the qualities that it's going to have, but it gets 4 to 5 additional qualities. So we want to put monstrous presence by itself, and that's going to be page 334 of Aeon. And I will probably go in and change all these instances of Aeon to TC Aeon, and the first instance in each chapter will probably say Trinity Continuum Aeon. Again, just in the name of consistency, and to keep from having Trinity Continuum Aeon written out 700 times in the book. So we got monstrous presence, and they get 4 to 5 more qualities. So let's go ahead and give them 5 more qualities. Let's do this. This is where we're going to get a little bit flossy, a little bit fancy. We're going to really design. So here's my thoughts, right? This is going to be a person who maybe they erupted on end day or shortly thereafter. So now they've been around for, what is it, 150, 200 years? They've got intensive mutations. They probably have very little recollection of who they were before all this. They're completely alien to our perceptions. So we're going to give them a whole ton of qualities here that are going to help make them awesome. Let's go with armor. We got to have armor. This dude's going to be tough. Despite the fact they also have durability scale, that's not enough. We're going to make them super, super tough. So the way that armor works is they're getting 2 points soft armor, and so that adds directly to defense. Also possesses a number of additional points of tags equal to 2 plus the aberrant's corruption. So we're looking at 10 points of tags. We've got complete 3, so that's against all damage types. That leaves us with 7, defensive of 2. That leaves us with 5 tags, environmental of 2, which leaves us with 3 points in tags. And so let's go ahead and do a hard armor at 3. And what that does is that gives us 2 more levels of health. So now their health is 12. Once again, any armor that the antagonist has, soft armor adds directly to defense, hard armor adds directly to health. So that is their first quality out of the way, armor. We have 4 more to nail down here. I think let's make them a blaster. Okay, so let's give them blast. Let them attack at a distance. And that's going to have some tags in it as well. So I'm just copying over the tag layout from armor, but we're going to change those tags into something that makes sense for our attack. So blast gets the quality tag at 2. And I already saw a spot where I messed up on the armor because that hard armor 3 and complete 3 should be in parentheses. So once again, just checking your consistency. And then if I go through and I check this against the core books when I'm all done and find out that that was wrong, I have to go through and delete all of those parentheses. But we do our best with the tools that we have. So we got armor is in, we got blast. That's going to be quality 2. I've already got that in there. And additional points of appropriate weapon tags equal to 2 plus the aberrant's corruption. So again, we have corruption of 8, so we have 10 additional tags we can throw on here. Let's see, what kind of tags do we want to put on this? Obviously, so I think it starts out at close range, so we'll need to buy a range for it. So going over into TC core, we're going to look up the range tag. So that's 1 point. So we're going to go ahead and add the range tag to it for 1. And let's make it medium. Now let's go ahead and give it ranged long with the 1 point tag. So our guy can fire at relatively great distances and hit their enemies. Now, because we can grab other arrays of tags, yeah, exactly. Blink a grin and a question if they're sure this is what they want to do can go a long way when you're communicating threats and hazards to players. So we got ranged. I'm gonna hop back over to Trinity Continuum, and I think we're gonna go with tactical sight so that we can increase that range threat. Yeah, let's do tactical sight. That's a 1-point tag. All right. So there's just 8 more points tags. I think we should make it variable so they can do regular or stun damage with it, because the only thing better than defeating your players is defeating them and having them get captured because they got knocked out. So let's do variable. That leaves us with 7. Let's do beam, because why would we not put a beam on this? So that allows them to fire a continuous beam with their blast and use the spray stunt. And let's say destructive. Which is a 2-point tag. And that can easily pierce armor and cut through tough materials. Reduces the target's armor rating by 2 and can slowly cut through most walls, doors, and other objects. So those are all of the tags that we're pulling from Aeon, and that is going to eat up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 4 more points in tags. I'm gonna bop back over to Trinity Continuum. Let's bump that quality up to 3. All right, right? Give them a nice +2 enhancement while using the blast. So that leaves us 3 left. And I think we should go brutal and aggravated for our last 3 points. So what aggravated does, that's a 2-point tag that inflicts more grievous wounds. Persistent injuries take double the amount of time to heal and require double the number of successes to treat with first aid. So these are very difficult to heal wounds. And brutal, which is one of my favorite tags, reduces the successes necessary for the critical stunt by 1. It's a fun tag. It's nice. It's versatile. Hey, how's it going, Tavern Tales? What's new? So yeah, our final blast, and we're gonna say, I'm assuming in my mind, I'm thinking this is just like a raw radiation blast, but maybe we'll refine that as we build out the scenario. But right now, the blast is aggravated, brutal, beam, destructive, long range, tactical sight, with quality 3 and variable, so you can do lethal or non-lethal damage with it, and can fire it with no penalty at every range up to long. Fun times. That is our second of 5 qualities, so we've got 3 left. So as you can see, when you're getting into like these, big beds and the boss levels, you can really wind up stacking a lot of power. One thing that I recommend doing is try to keep everything to kind of a consistent theme so that it's easier for the story guide to keep track of what exactly they're looking at in terms of capabilities for these characters, because it is very easy when you're story guiding, you got 100 things going on in your mind at the same time, so it's very easy for you to lose track and forget some important capability that the antagonist has. So trying to keep things kind of siloed into a concept is good. I like the idea of the radiation. I like the idea that maybe at one point their powers were light based, but now they have gone into just raw absolute irradiation. And in fact, since we got qualities and mutations left, I'm going to look and see. I want to see if there's anything here that gives a glow in the existing qualities. I bet there's not. Okay. So yeah, we might wind up building a couple of new qualities and or mutations. So let's, in addition to our blast, let's add baleful touch. Now, what that does, rather than firing a blast of radiation, this is like disruption of cellular processes at touch. So if they attack, it fills an additional health box unless that health box would inflict an injury complication greater than the one marked normally. So basically, if they have multiple health boxes of the same or lesser complication, you can fill in a second one when you attack. It also lingers, so if they don't take an action on their next turn, they take additional damage, and that actually doesn't isn't limited to touch. We can even work that into the attacks from the blast. So let's do that. All right. And so now here's where we're going to get a little creative. I would like our buddy to be able to emanate a bright glow. So since we are dealing with Trinity Continuum, one of the things that's nice is you're designing antagonist powers. If you don't find the thing that you're looking for in the source material that you're referring to, you can dig elsewhere in the Trinity Continuum and find something that you can sort of port over. In this particular case, we were talking about bioluminescence. I don't know why I think that's an awesome power, but I just think it is. In fact, I gave it to the main character in Terrat because I thought it was a cool power. So, since we know exactly what effect we're trying to mimic, we can look that up right here in Trinity Continuum Aberrant. It says that you shed light enough to strong enough to illuminate a short distance around you. So we could just really sort of port that over. So let's say, excuse me. Throat's a wee bit dry. So I'm going with bold here. Get a new quality. Called luminous. And we'll put the aberrant. How do you want to phrase this to separate it out a little bit from simple bioluminescence? So we're going to say the aberrant leaks quantum energy in the form of glowing light. This light is bright enough to illuminate the aberrant's presence out to, how about illuminate the area immediately surrounding. Okay, the aberrant leaks quantum energy in the form of glowing light. This light is bright enough to illuminate the area immediately surrounding the aberrant out to short range. And then we'll say, because again, this is going to be a little bit different than the raw bioluminescence power, let's give it a little extra oomph and a little extra difficulty. So we'll say that aberrants with this quality suffer a, say, +3 difficulty on all attempts to hide from visual detection. But what's the bonus we're going to give them for that? So they're glowing. They get a +3 difficulty on all attempts to hide from visual detection. And we'll say I think they'll do it. I think they'll do it. They're leaking light. They illuminate an area. They're a night light, and it's harder for them to hide. Great. I dig it. So we'll add luminous to the qualities. And that gives us 2 more. I definitely want to give them regeneration because I'm a jerk face and I like regenerating enemies. So our monster's presence down. Let's go regeneration. And that's where I was getting confused. Invulnerability is the type that you are invulnerable to, and regeneration is the type that you are vulnerable to. So let's say that they have regeneration, but they are vulnerable to let's do cold, right? Because they have radiation-based powers. So that means that our psychokinetic, who we had kind of taken off the board with the invulnerability to heat from our buddy the Nemesis, is back on board because our buddy, the Terrat, has a vulnerability to cold. That leaves us with one more quality. I just want to shout out Hot Dog Wizard. Thank you very much for the resub. So we got one more quality. What do we want to give them? I feel like Unstoppable is probably a little unfair because we've given that to our little buddy. Let's do Flight. Yeah. This Terrat does not need to touch the ground. That is a weakness for lesser folk. So Blast and then Flight. It's going to be page 334 as well. Beautiful. All right, so just another quick rundown on where we've landed traits-wise. For qualities, we have Armor, Baleful Touch, Blast, Flight, Luminous, which is new, and Monstrous Presence. Those are our characters' qualities. Diving into mutations, they have 4 to 5 listed. I'm going to give them 5. Once again, we are building a big bad. This is the type of monster that I think can become a recurring villain for the duration of a campaign. That's kind of what the tear-out level is for. They're either a recurring enemy that one can't put down immediately, or like almost a natural disaster sort of level of event when an enemy like this appears. Hey, kitty, come here. No? I'm sorry if y'all hear my cat being all loud in the background. That is not intentional. All right, so getting into our mutations, what are a couple things we want to make sure that we're doing, right? We want to make sure that we have some method for them to travel in space and carry along these settlers with them who formed a brand new colony. So we're going to go ahead and give them the warp mutation for sure. That costs 3 corruption, but allows them to open a portal, punching a wormhole through space with pure power. They can traverse galactic clusters or further in a single portal. Aberrants can only travel through one at a time, but that's okay. So we're going to definitely add warp to the mutations. That sits at page 337. It just occurred to me as I was talking about consistency earlier, I need to move move the name of the book to before the page number so that the reference is consistent. All right. So that's going to be a 3 quantum thing, but it lasts as long as it needs to. So that's good. Again, I want to tie into the radiation theme. So let's do quantum wind. It's going to cost 2 corruption, but basically they can continue going against staggering odds if they hit. Only one remaining health. It says that the story guide can spend one corruption to clear its entire stress track. I'm going to take that to mean they can clear their entire injury track. And I'm going to clarify that in this text as well, that that is the intended meaning that we're going to go with for quantum leap. That is also on page 337. And so before I forget, no, I lied. That's on page 336. But before I forget, because we are putting that there, I'm going to put a little, you grab a sidebar. One of the other things that's neat about working in directly in InDesign is some of these little design elements, rather than having to format the text and lay it out later and sort it out, which can be kind of a pain in the neck, you just can grab the actual element you want and toss it in place. So we're going to put this sidebar right here for now. We may come back and move it later, depends on where we're at with the text. And we're going to say stress conditions, and we're going to go ahead and say conditions aren't described. Let's see. I'm just double checking to make sure I'm not talking out of my tailpipe here. Just double checking to make sure there's no like actual stress condition thing that I'm missing. There aren't. So in order to correct this for the purposes of this text, we're going to say stress conditions aren't described in and for the purposes of this adventure, assume all mentions of stress conditions and mutation and quality descriptions and refer to injury conditions. Alternatively, if the aberrant has no injuries, the story guide may rule the quality or mutation deals with status conditions. Okay, so just to clarify what I just mumble typed. Sorry, I have a really hard time typing and talking at the same time, but I'm trying to work on it through practice. So sometimes you run across something in the text while you're working on community content, and maybe it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you. It could be that it was an oversight during the editing process, especially on some of the older Trinity books. Or it could just be that maybe you're not getting your head around what they mean. But if you feel like something is not working or you don't understand how it's working and you want to put a qualification or a clarification in your book, absolutely do so. It's your book. If you just don't like the way a certain rule works in the core rules and you want to change it for the purposes of your adventure, you can write that down in a sidebar, and the story guide can either go with the rules that you wrote or go with the rules that are written. There's no, as long as you're staying within the core engine, there's no bumpers on that. You can customize the rule set, or just say, for the purposes of this adventure, this is how this is going to work. Obviously, you still have to be using the Storypath engine, but if you have little widgets that you want to introduce or little things that you feel could use some clarification, throw them in there. That's part of what community content is for. So just to recap, stress conditions aren't described in Trinity Continuum, and for the purposes of this adventure, assume all mentions of stress conditions in mutation and quality descriptions refer to injury conditions. Alternatively, if the aberrant has no injuries, the story guide may rule the quality or mutation deals with status conditions. So basically, in layman's terms, what that means is this quantum wind would allow them, if they're down to 1 health, they would be able to regain all their health. Or if they are not down, or I guess if they have status conditions, they could spend the corruption to get rid of that as well. So we'd be looking at 2 corruption, because this is a Terrat level aberrant. I'm going to go ahead and write that down here before I forget as well. Yeah, so they would have to spend 2 corruption to access quantum wind, but otherwise, it's good to go. And thank you very much, Blank. I appreciate that. All right, so we've got 3 mutations remaining. I think that Mastermind could be fun to add to this particular aberrant. The aberrant has shielded itself from scrutiny, and investigators only find mind warp, cat spas, and agents crumble under scrutiny. They know there's an aberrant directing affairs, but they rarely catch the mastermind. For one corruption, the aberrant may alter the clues in a single investigation so that they appear to implicate someone working for it rather than the aberrant. You know what? As I read that, I don't think that's appropriate kind of for what we're going for here, because at the end of the day, I mean, it wasn't the aberrant, it was people working for him. So that's not really going to help our story. So they don't need it. Direct corruption is nice. Direct corruption lets them permanently corrupt a subject's cellular signature with quantum energies, turning them into a sub-aberrant mutant. That sounds like something that our homie here is going to have, right? This dude's been mutating people for a century up there in the asteroid belt, so sure, why not? So that's on page 335. So yeah, that's an important thing to have if you've got a, cult leader who's based on sort of passing out power and distributing power to their servants. Throwing the direct corruption mutation in at them is a good call. And so that should bring us to 2 mutations left. Is there anything specific we want to pursue here? Disruption we've already got on one of the other, on the Nemesis. Eye of the Colony. Would allow them to sort of drop out like little summoned swarms, almost like when I read about this power, I think of the film Cloverfield and the little monsters that fell off of the main monster. That's kind of what Eye of the Colony reminds me of. I think that's cool. I don't think that fits with kind of what we're looking at with this sort of radiation-based or radiation-centered mutations. I do, however, think maybe we had quantum wave in addition to quantum wind. Quantum wave allows them to grant enhancement or heal the injuries of their associates. So that sounds about right. So we're going to add that in. Okay, so we have one more mutation left. As we're dealing with this mutation or this sort of radiation-based power, right? Why don't we instead of let's make a new mutation. So the principal difference between qualities and mutations is qualities are just a thing that kind of happens. Mutations require generally require an expenditure of corruption, but also have a cooldown period. You can only be used so often. So let's try to build ourselves a mutation. It's going to be radiation based. I want to go off of the sort of, once again, reaching back into aberrant for our ideas for how this is going to function. Let's do an absorption based mutation. So we'll say what this will do. The way absorption works in aberrant is you roll successes when you're attacked by the type of energy that you're capable of absorbing. And then you gain quantum pool points back based on the number of successes. We're going to tweak that out a little bit because it's going to be based on regaining corruption rather than regaining their quantum pool. The numbers are different. What they represent is a little different. It's similar in concept, but mechanically it's a very different representation. So let's play with that design a little bit. Let's bring up another bold here. And let's go with new mutation. And we're going to call it energy absorption. And so instead of this being like a 1-for-1 thing for any attack, we're going to have the aberrant must select a source of damage when taking this mutation. When the aberrant is attacked using that source of damage, they spend 1 corruption to roll their desperation pool. we'll say what do we want the difficulty of this to be based on? Roll their desperation pool against the incoming attack. If the sorry, this I got into a groove and stopped talking while I was typing. So we'll set up energy absorption. The aberrant must select source of damage when taking this mutation. When the aberrant is attacked using that source of damage, they may spend 1 corruption point to roll their desperation pool against the incoming attack. If the aberrant gains more successes than the attacker, they may regain 1 point of corruption. If the aberrant gains 5 or more successes beyond the attacker's total, they may regain 2 points of corruption. I am going to say that this can cannot exceed the aberrant's starting corruption score. So let's clarify that. Corruption regained through this mutation cannot exceed the aberrant starting corruption score. And when we say the aberrant must select a source of damage when taking this mutation, we're going to say such as heat, cold, electricity, or radiation. And in this case, as our buddy the Terra is going to be taking energy absorption, we're going to, as the radiation base, we're going to make it radiation damage, right? I think that fits. I don't know that our friends are going to be dealing a whole lot of radiation damage, but maybe yeah. Let's tweak it out to heat because I think that's parallel with it, right? Close enough to still fit within the sort of profile that we've built here. But also something that the characters are likely to be wielding. And that's another thing too. Don't be afraid as you're designing community content. Don't be afraid to cater to what you know the players will and will not be using, right? So, yeah, heat is too easy for this thing to absorb. And where that would come into play really is be a way to whittle down successes from psychokinetics, who are one of the big damage dealers in Trinity Continuum. But also, it's a way to sort of keep that corruption topped off. Having said that, though, at the end of the day, at that point, they're getting into a contested role. pitting their desperation pool against the um, successes that an attacker gets. Now, the Terrat is tossing around an absurd level of enhancement. They get 5, but I would imagine a Scion who's tricked out to get into a fight toe to toe with this thing, probably throwing around a bit of enhancement themselves, and is probably throwing more than 6 dice um, on their psionic attack to try to hit um, the aberrant with their heat attack. So I think it's fair. It's a challenge, absolutely, but I don't think it's unfair. And yeah, I don't see them using radiation against this thing, mainly just because that's not something that's generally weaponized in yeah for player characters. So that's why I wanted to lean on heat. I think. Um, I think that fits in even better too with the fact that I believe under its regeneration we went to with vulnerable to cold. So yeah, I think we're staying on theme here. You got heat, radiation. Uh, One often causes the other. And just to clean things up a little bit better, I'm gonna pop this guy down here. Oh no no no! Again, just bear with me. I'm doing a little bit of cleanup because as I'm working in InDesign, I like to do the layout adjustments as I'm doing the um, actual writing. So we have some. I don't know if you can see it on camera. It might be very small, but there's this little red dot there, and that means that we have some overset text. In that case, I like to go through, punch the overset text out, and delete it, since I know that down here below I have the same text. So it's just placeholder. Go ahead and trim the extra fat, as it were. Oh, it'd help if I did it the right way. Instead of deleting it like delete the whole text box, I'm going to delete the contents of the text box. We get rid of our little red dot there. Should be good to go. And good to go. All right, cool. All of our missing text is gone. We've got a bit of a bigger area now to deal with our friend. So let's bring that across like that. We will reveal a bit more of what he's got going on. Make him a little bit more imposing, a little bit scarier. He is, after all, our big bad evil guy. Um, yes, of course. There we go. All right, so now what we've managed to do so far this session, just to sort of recap. We have wrapped up the creation on our nemesis, who's going to be, the way I'm seeing it, the nemesis is probably the highest level antagonist the party is likely to run into in this scenario, right? I think maybe we frame it where, like, unless things go remarkably bad, the Terrat does not trouble himself with the affairs of this party. Kind of leave him lurking there in the shadows as a ongoing potential enemy. I think that's a good use for him. I may change my mind on that as we're going through and refining things, but I don't know for sure that I will. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I have a little artifact here that I'm not fond of. I'm going to try to see if I can fix. Um, I just would like the shading on here to be a little bit more pronounced. There we go. Just a little thing, and I don't even know if it's showing up enough there on the screen that it matters to you all, but it was sure driving me crazy. So now that that's done, we can get back into kind of wrapping this thing up here. So yeah, I think our Terra is going to be our main sort of arch enemy. I think the party is beneath its notice unless the party works real hard to bring attention to themselves. So, because none of what we purchased in the Terrat's qualities or mutations are scale impacting, we're going to keep their scale broken down as it is. So their durability 4, power 4, size 4. And we're going to go ahead and figure out their armor is already added into their defense. Yes, so we get hard armor 2. We did not add the soft armor to their defense, I don't believe. Let me double check the Terrat stat block. Yeah, their starting defense is 5, so they had a 7, so we did add it. Okay, so that's worked in there. We've got monstrous presence sorted out. All of our traits are broken in here. So I think for our Terra, we're going to actually break it down so that their primary pool is going to be terraforming. Or I guess we should say, rather than terraforming, just I guess terraforming is probably the easiest way to say something like shaping the environment for survivability or because the idea being that they're doing something that is going to help help make this a place where that they can live. So how about actually we make their primary pool is going to be based around, we'll say, geology and astronomy. So their primary concern is making and maintaining a safe extraterrestrial, yes, terraforming. So their primary pool is based around making and locating a safe extraterrestrial uh, settlement for their people. That is what they've um, sort of dedicated themselves to the point where now it is their primary pool. The maintenance would also fall under that. But just to clarify that, because I think that might be a stretch for some readers, I'm going to say colony maintenance. Let's say asteroid asteroid colony maintenance, and geology. So then our next step is going to be our secondary pool, and for that we're going to add ranged combat, and let's say how about biology and medicine, right? Somebody has been keeping these people alive, and that might help explain too, like why Artera has decided to give the mutations out that they've decided to give out, based on need for survival in the area, or what they perceive to be need for survival in the area. I think that might be cool. So let's go with biology, medicine, and ranged combat. Okay. Cool. I dig it. I think we're in good shape. So based on that breakdown of skills, sorry, my other cat is now joined in on the we're going to disrupt stream party. Yeah, based on the secondary pools, primary pool, where the things have fallen, I'm going to set the initiative is equal to the secondary pool. And that is done. So now we have kind of our wealth of antagonists have been designed. We have a new quality that we're adding to the system, a new mutation that we're adding to the system, and a breakdown of how stress conditions are going to be going to be handled within the span of this adventure. So again, we're dealing strictly in traits at the moment. We have about 20 minutes left of our scheduled time, so I'm going to take a moment and take a sip here. I also would like to remind you, once again, that we do have the Kickstarter going for Titans Rising and Titanomachy. So if you're, thanks, I will do so again, Blank. I appreciate it. So if you're a fan of Scion, you should head over and check out the link for the Kickstarter. Titans Rising is a whole new supplement that helps bring and expand Titanic characters to your game. Titanomachy is a collection of antagonists. The aim for the Kickstarter is to bring both of those books into traditional print and into your friendly local game stores. So you can order both books to be traditionally printed and sent to you. Help us get them into stores and help expand the Scion line. Also would love to remind you that Rat in a Burning Cage is currently available over at DriveThru. This is a Assassins-based digital adventure. One might say a digital box set, even. In here, you're going to get a PDF booklet that has all the rules that you need to play the story, a complete story ready to go, 5 ready-made characters, including breakdowns on how all their powers work and such. Their masteries for assassins. Set in the Trinity Continuum. There's VTT tokens, maps made specifically to work with virtual tabletops, various handouts, and even some audio files that come along with Rat in a Burning Cage. So definitely go check that out over at DriveThru RPG. If you come back here tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern, Corbin will be running a actual play of that, and I'll be playing in it. So it's going to be a fun time. Make sure you don't miss that. That's Friday the 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern for a actual play of Rat in a Burning Cage. Very excited and psyched about that. So we got about 20 minutes or so. Don't worry, Blink, too, if you miss the actual play. You can always watch it on VOD if you're subscribed. It goes immediately available to VOD. So if you're working, for example, at that time, or you just, you got it's Friday night, you got a date, you got, whatever, social engagement planned, you can always pop back in and watch it on VOD if you're a sub. If you're not a subscriber, that's okay. Not the apocalypse. I understand, times is hard, money is tight. So you can watch the VOD when it gets to YouTube. Usually that's about a week. But we have a little bit of a backlog because we've had a lot going on recently. But it will be on YouTube soon. Yeah. Also, if time zone shenanigans are a impediment to watching while things are live, the VOD is a good way to do it to handle it. So yeah. All right. In our last few minutes here, I don't want to start anything too new here. I would say that we've sort of developed a few ideas of our colony. So maybe we can put a little bit into our Terrat's motivations. Just so that way we've got that covered. And we're not just blindly flailing about and guessing at what this entity from the stars has in mind. Okay. So the Terrat wants to preserve the lives of their followers. Excuse me. And I think that's an interesting motivation, right? Because I think this gives the idea that this aberrant, as difficult as it might be for the players to face, and as strange as it might seem to the players, it has a motivation that is relatable. It just wants its people to be safe. And this also gives them an opportunity where they might be able to leverage, depending on how mercenary the players are, maybe might be able to leverage that particular motivation to their advantage. By either by convincing the aberrant that through cooperation, the safety of the cultists can be preserved, or by using them as like literal leverage by like threatening them when dealing with the aberrant. Might not be the smartest move. It's certainly got its risks, but it's an option. Leave a kind note for my future self. I will. The kind note I'm going to leave for my future self is Blank said leave a kind note. Here's a kind note. There we go. I have left a kind note for my future self. All right. Aberrant motivations. What else we got? We've got preserve the lives of their followers, drive ice off of their asteroid. I think this is important to note for the story guide to keep in mind, and an important thing that the players might be able to discover. That this is not necessarily the Aberrant's not trying to drive Scions completely out of the asteroid belt. They're only concerned with their immediate territory. They don't care what goes on outside of that sphere. So what else might they want to focus on? They don't necessarily want to leave where they're at because they're happy, or otherwise they would have left by now. How about avoid conflict with an UN forces? Right? Because this cult and the aberrants they worship have all sort of been on the run from Earth since the ultimatum, since all of the aberrants left. So one thing that it would stand to reason that these aberrants do not wish to engage in would be a direct conflict with the forces of Aeon or those under the control of the United Nations, right? That's the thing that they came out here to get away from. They certainly don't want to push it. Now, I've listed that under the preserved life of their followers and drive ice off the asteroid because they do want to defend their home, right? So these are some of the conflicting... that offers some interesting conflict because now you have, okay, maybe they're not necessarily bloodthirsty murderers, but they want to remain anonymous. They want to keep Aeon out of their hair, and they want to preserve their access to their living space, right? So now you have, I think, a rich set of motivations to kind of describe the actions that your primary antagonist is going to take and is going to command others to take. Now, I think before we release this, we would want to flesh out that bulleted list into like an actual text-based description. You know, we want to get into the weeds a little bit about who they are, where they come from. You know, as of right now, they don't have a name. We want to probably name them. Maybe even hint at least at their activities prior to the Exodus. Who were they before the Aberrant War? That might be an interesting thing to maybe investigate if it proves interesting and if it enriches the story. It might also be one of the things that you'll find as you're doing community content or really any writing. You'll find that sometimes you write some backstory stuff or you discover something about a character that in the course of like writing up their backstory that never makes it onto the completed page, but still greatly enriches the experience for you as a writer because it helps you sort of point toward what is actually important to that character, if that makes sense. Right now I'm just going through and fixing all my references to Aeon, and then I'm going to start moving odd. Um, Sorry, I got lost by being confused by the behaviors of this software. Um, yeah, the point being is you want to make sure that you are leaving a good roadmap for yourself as well as for the story guides. And you can trim some of the fat from that roadmap before you get its final form out there in the world. But it never hurts to have it. It's easier in my mind to trim away the fat in a particular document than it is to go back in and write extra stuff because you forgot to explain something. So my advice would be as you're building kind of your first draft, build it up in bullet points, even bullet points that maybe you think might not be necessarily pertinent to the final product, and then go back through it and trim out the unnecessary stuff, the things that the audience is not going to need in order to make the book work. And having said that too, there's nothing wrong with indulging oneself a bit in the community content space. I personally think it's cleaner and better writing if you can just kind of pull out all the unnecessary stuff. But if you find some fluff that you think is really cool or is really sort of does a particularly strong job of conveying kind of the environment or message you want to convey with the character, by all means, leave it in. You get to decide what stays and what goes, and that's another thing that's very cool about community content. If you're working on these games, doing work for hire, which is absolutely possible based on the strength of your community content. I know I look at community content things when I'm looking for people to hire for a new project. So, it's a possible springboard. But when you're doing that work for hire, you're writing to a spec, you're writing to what the developer's vision is, and you have to stay within the terms of that brief. Whereas if you are writing a community content thing, it's advisable to stay within the terms of your brief. It's advisable to not go wandering too far off into the weeds. But if you come up with something that's kind of cool that you want to explore more, you have a little bit more freedom to do so in that space, which I think is a good thing. I think it's cool. I think it helps feed creativity. But then again, far be it for me to stand in the way of writers far more successful and skilled than I am who say, omit needless words and slaughter all your babies. That's good writing advice. But it's not always good fun advice, and while obviously there are going to be people who are going to engage the community content programs with an eye toward professionalism and creating a professional quality product, which is totally fine, absolutely good, advisable. Even there's going to be some people who just want to, play with their toys in the sand. They just want to have the fun of putting the thing that they use at their table out there for other tables to use, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is 100% okay. I would, in fact, say that's encouraged. This is a hobby that we all do because it's fun. If it stops being fun, stops, there's what's the point in doing it, right? Yeah, I guess that's kind of my final thought on community content. So now I'm really just kind of going through and cleaning up some formatting stuff. As I'm doing that, we'll plan on being back here the same time next week, unless something explodes. I would like to hopefully continue doing this until this book is done, and then who knows from there? We'll see how it goes. So if you haven't yet done so, please follow and subscribe so you know when we go live. If you haven't followed me on social media, please consider doing so. I'm at Travis Legge pretty much everywhere, like you see it under my face. There's a very good chance that mid-September I will be shuttering my Twitter page and not really doing much more with it after that. But for the moment, I'm still over there. I've also just added a Blue Sky account. I have a lot going on right now, so definitely check out my social media. And if you are so kind as to click on the at Plastic Age Plays in the title of this episode, it'll take you over to my Twitch channel. I got some stuff scheduled for next week. I would love to have you join me over there for. Blink, thank you so much for saying that nice stuff. I'm just trying to share what I experience and what my perspectives are on it. I'm sure that there are other creators you will find that'll have different perspectives, and none of them are wrong necessarily. They're just people see things differently. So I definitely want to get my point of view out there for people to consider. And thank you for tuning in and checking it out. I really appreciate it. In the meantime, I'm going to get out of your hair, but until then, make sure you wash your hands, wear masks, get shots, whatever is pertinent for your current region in dealing with the ongoing pandemic. And take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you again real soon. Bye.